We now welcome two very important people in our community. You may see them when disaster strikes or when you're preparing for one. We're welcoming Rick McBrayer and Jenna Banda with the Victoria County Emergency Management Office. Did I get it?
Indeed correct.
And Rick, I've known you for several years now.
Yes,
we went through Harvey together, and Jenna, I've known you as well too, and y'all do an excellent job on your social media. I'm excited to learn about your upcoming Mid-Coast Hurricane and Disaster Conference.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So we are in our 24th year of what you just mentioned, the Mid-Coast Hurricane Disaster Conference. We switched the name a couple of years ago to include the word disaster because we didn't want to focus just strictly on hurricanes and hurricane-centric items. And so we really tried to expand that. Just a couple of years ago, I guess we're about 4 or 5 years ago, we added in many other sessions into it to really start focusing on all hazards approach to our community, business partners, citizens, so they could come out and have 2 days. Actually, we expanded it about 2 years ago to a 2-day conference. The first day is a educational session to where mainly our first responders, people that are in the field day in and day out, can come out and do hands-on training that they oftentimes can't get from other locations. We bring those here, add it to our conference. And then the secondary day is going to be the main conference where we have a lot of guest speakers, sessions that are go on throughout the day to really try to inform our community, inform our citizens, our practitioners that are out there, really bring all those folks together for best management practices. So.
And kind of speaking to local needs, I noticed this a little bit last year too. On the schedule, there is something about immigration, dealing with human trafficking and the bailouts and how that works in response to disasters and hurricane preparedness. So that's an interesting element.
It is.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk about the keynote speaker for?
Sure. Our keynote speaker for the conference this year, which will be on Thursday, is the Chief Border Patrol Agent, Gloria Chavez, for the Rio Grande Valley sector. And she's a phenomenal speaker and really brings to light what it is that Customs and Border Patrol does at the border. I know there is a lot of information that circulates that, and she really puts it into perspective of the things that those Border Patrol agents are encountering and the things that they are doing to enhance border security. And she takes a very high level but very in-depth approach to explaining all of that, and it is extremely informative. And we have some other sessions too that will take place on Thursday, on April 3rd, that are not necessarily with that same track or that same type of genre, if you will, but we do have some. We have, I think, I don't want to butcher her name, but Kim Duchamp from the Human Trafficking Institute in Houston. So hers is different perspective, not necessarily from the border side,
right.
But talking about human trafficking, and she is also a phenomenal speaker talking about some of the things that either law enforcement or even just the general community member can, I guess, look out for when they encounter things that either law enforcement or the Human Trafficking Institute have seen are some common trends of things to look out for, because they can be hidden in plain sight. And so she brings to light some of that information that can really highlight how people can help their community by identifying those things, because we always, of course, from any public safety perspective, if you see something, say something. And so I know she really highlights that along with some other things too.
Well, it's a very human issue. It's a very real issue for our community. We're right in the pathway of all of that human trafficking, and it's not just human trafficking, it's weapons, drugs, something for all of us to keep top of mind, especially when disaster strikes. Hurricane season, I've been through Harvey. I wasn't here for the '98 flood, but we recognize in our community these are very real dangers.
Absolutely. Those are things that we need to be prepared for every single day, and don't become complacent as the years go on. We oftentimes will find ourselves, well, this event hasn't happened, like the '98 flood of record. It has not happened in quite some time, and so then we get very complacent about the response to that and the preparedness for it. And so this is part of what the conference is really designed to do. We have everything from, I'm going to put on my glasses here real quick, everything from, emergency preparedness by HEB, some of our partners out there, and how they prepare their stores, how they prepare their communities for response and recovery efforts. We have a civilian response active shooter event that is going to be taking place that day. We have hurricane barrel response from some of our partners up at STRAC and South Texas Regional Advisory Council on how they best responded to and were prepared for sending down resources into our affected areas. Whereas Barrow here for Victoria, we received very little impact to it, but Partner Star East received a lot of the impacts, and so they sent down a lot of resources into that area as well. We have things like from the Texas AgriLife Extension Agency Evolution Disaster Cycle and how things are prepared for and respond to in the AgriLife area. And so we're really trying to broaden our scope in the last couple of years to really start including other things outside of just hurricane-centric items. And so really trying to draw that attention into the conference. And like I mentioned earlier, the pre-conference is just a day of continued education for those partners that are out there that do the things day in, day out, healthcare workers to law enforcement.
Whether it's a storm or a natural disaster, there's always lessons to be learned, and
Sure.
I'm glad that we're going to continue to share those lessons here in Victoria County. I want to thank y'all so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
All right, well, coming up, don't go anywhere. We hear more from our guest here on Community Crossroads.